We are hot. Look at Brady and his gamer setup, Lorenzo.
Yeah, are you playing Call of Duty later, or what's the deal?
I'm actually playing Call of Duty right now.
Oh,
so when you guys hear me pause this, I'll be over here on my other screen playing.
Are you more of a Call of Duty guy or Grand Theft Auto?
I've only played Call of Duty once in my life, so I would say maybe Grand Theft Auto when I was 12 years old.
I thought maybe you'd be into like Minecraft. I pin you for a Minecrafter.
And if it's Lord of the Rings related, you know I'm there because I got a lot of old Lord of the Rings games, Trail.
Yeah.
You want to know one of the best parts about having two young boys?
What's that?
My Mario Kart skills right now?
No, I bet they're pretty baller.
Unmatched.
I think I'm better than I've ever been at Mario Kart.
Who's your go-to character?
Goomba.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's the turtle shell guy with the spikes on his back?
No, Goomba is like the little mushroom.
Oh, okay.
With the fangs as teeth.
Yeah, who's the one I'm thinking of? Do you know his name?
Bowser?
Yeah, that might be it.
Yeah, that's Bowser.
That's Lorenzo's lizard's name. Not get your mind out of the gutter. His actual gecko's name is Bowser.
Jeez, Trail.
I wasn't thinking that, but I like that you threw it out there because that's
his gecko's name is Bowser.
That's funny. All right, so for people listening or watching on YouTube, you see things look a little different today. We're remote. We're actually all in our respective little office spaces. The reason behind that is because we have a couple guests today that we've invited on. We have Charles from over at Howl for Wildlife. We wanted to talk a little bit about this Catalina killing documentary that Howl just put out, and we kind of visit it and just see what's on Howl's radar. Also, we wanted to get a chance to talk to Dane Gates, so we're going to call him later in the podcast and have a chat with him about what's going on in Colorado. Every time I talk to Dan, I hope that it's good news, and sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's like, man, you guys can't believe what's coming down the pipeline.
He pulled me over to the side at Sheep Show, and he's like, there's a lot of stuff coming down right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to swear right away, but he used a swear word when he has said it.
Yeah.
He's like, there's a lot of stuff that you guys need to be alert about. And it's like, why? It's always something.
Yeah. And then I think later on today, we're going to do a separate podcast and talk about this IP 28 out of Oregon, which is one of the craziest proposals I think I've ever read. And then the fact that it's gaining traction is
I just did a green screen on that for us, like a video update on it that we're going to put out on social. And there is so much like irony. I mean, take out like all just the absolute batshit crazy stuff, right? But like there's so much irony in this whole thing of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's pretty hideous.
It shows you how many brain cells short they are of a full deck, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, as I was driving down today, I was thinking about it and just kind of laying out some of the proposals that you know, it just seems so outlandish. I mean, the hunting and fishing thing, above and beyond that, the the livestock side of it, the breeding side of it,
the food production side of it.
Food production side of it is so crazy. Just crazy. And the fact that it's gaining traction is nuts.
I mean, there's enough people with blue hair in Portland that it's going to gain traction.
And
the Antifa headquarters, isn't it?
Yeah, Portland. Yeah.
And what I have read is it's like obviously everything is deceiving when they say, "Hey, sign this." Or, do you support like animals being treated well? And people are like, "Oh, I'll sign that." Like that's the tactics they're doing.
Yeah, the language in it's deceptive.
Yeah.
Even if you read it, you know, you have to kind of go and do a deep dive to kind of get the full gist of it. But I mean, we're going to talk about that later today. I guess before Charles joins us here in 3 minutes, we need to hit promo code. So let's get that out of the way so that we can talk to Charles and have a good discussion with him about deer in California. The other thing I want to talk to Charles about is about bear hunting in California, because I think there's meat on the bone, if you will, talk about bear hunting in California. But promo, Brady, do you want to hit promo, first part of promo?
Yes, use promo code podcast when you sign up for an insider account to get 50 points back to the GOHUNT Gear Shop, which is $50. application season. You need an insider membership if you don't have one. So sign up using promo code podcast, get $50 back. Start doing your research. I mean, deadlines are falling. We just had Wyoming and Arizona recently.
Yep.
And there's more coming. So get the tools to get the best research in your hands so you can make a well-informed decision on your application strategy and plan for this year. And
is Arizona closed, right?
Yesterday.
Yeah, elk and antelope closed yesterday, February 3rd.
Yep. They're coming and going quick, quicker than it feels like should be.
Yeah.
Just like every year, I think they sneak up on me. I know Brady did his last minute. I did mine fairly last minute. Had to get some decisions. It's a whole different thing when you're making decisions for yourself, but then you're also making selections for everybody in your house that you also apply for. Which I'm at the age where I've got kids that hunt too, so it's a lot of decision making going on. My brain was smoking yesterday trying to figure out what I want to apply for and apply my kids for. The other thing I wanted to hit, we do have this, I guess our accountant, so Scott, shout out Scott. He's our accountant, our money guy here at the office. I heard through the grapevine that he's going to be out of the office on vacation, the 13th through the 25th. So we thought it'd be kind of fun to do the accountant is out of town sale. So the 13th through the 25th of this month, we're going to have products from a bunch of different brands that'll be on sale, including Vortex, Peak Refuel. Those will be on sale. So if you're looking to maybe pick up some new optics or just stock up for, your food, you want to pay attention to that sale while Scott's out of town, and we're going to kind of dupe him and sell stuff at a discounted cost.
He can't say no if he doesn't know about it.
That's true. He can't. He can't. I want to know where he's going. Do you guys know where he's going?
Yeah.
You do.
He's going far enough away that I'm not worried.
Perfect.
He won't be updated.
No.
And then the other thing I wanted to hit at the top of the podcast is that we now have messaging live within your insider account. You guys can use that to, contact us. We're kind of processing and moving through application season. And then as you start to draw tags, that messaging in the app is going to become that much more important to kind of help you, find out, where to apply or even, where you might want to hunt. So I wanted to note that at the top. But we have our guest that joined us. Charles, how's it going?
Good. How you doing? Good to see you guys.
Man. It's a good looking hat.
I love this hat. I just got it at the cheap show.
Yeah,
it's also a good looking deer behind there too. So
yeah, there's some good ones. My old GOHUNT hat burned in the truck fire I had, so I had to get a couple new ones. I got the other one with the elk on there too. It's a sweet hat.
You had a truck fire?
Dude, I was mule deer hunting in California, and I woke up at 5 a.m, took a shower. I got out of the shower, smelled like rubber was burning. So I ran outside, butt naked. The whole front of my truck under the hood was on fire. I have no idea what happened. Nothing was plugged in. I lost everything.
No way.
Wow.
That was November 30th. I had a late season California archery mule deer tag, and yeah, that was fun.
Crazy.
That is wild.
And you don't know what happened. You didn't get any closure on.
It must have been a short or something under the hood.
Gotcha. Dang.
Scary.
It was pretty wild.
How's things going over at Howl? We wanted to have you on to talk today about Catalina. So killing Catalina. We thought we'd talk about that.
Yeah.
Also wanted to pick your brain a little bit about maybe bear hunting a little bit.
Sure.
In California, what's on the docket, and then just anything that you guys are working off in general that you kind of see coming up. We already noted that we're going to do a whole podcast dedicated to this Oregon IP28.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anything more wild than that?
No, this one's like everything. This is all the crazy people coming together and coming up with the craziest idea they've ever had. Yeah. I mean, it's
out there.
It really is just that.
Yeah. Crazy. I wanted to maybe we'll start kind of maybe at the end, if that's okay. I'm curious as to where this Catalina, proposal to eliminate mule deer from that island, like where it's at, and then maybe work backwards to kind of see where it came from. And there's a bunch of different topics I would like your take on, including, the why, kind of the history of mule deer on Catalina and California in general. So maybe start out, if you might, just like where it's at right now.
Well, where it's at right now, the day that we premiered the film on Catalina Island, we had a private showing there, which was great. We had 170 people show up. The interim director of CDFW approved the CEQA permit was approved, which was the biggest hurdle. And then I think either the next day or the same day, the RMP permit was approved. So that's where it's at now. They got their approval. Now, that approval is for a multitude of restoration projects. We don't know when the actual deer eradication will start. It sounds like it's going to be a 5-year period to do that. But yeah, I mean, that's where it's at right now. There's definitely things we can do. There's solutions we can bring to this. There is I think I'm allowed to talk about it. There are some lawsuits coming to challenge the process and challenge many different levels of this.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, a few more options available.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, at least it's not good in the fact that it sounds like they're moving forward with it, but it is good that, and I would have assumed that you'd have had a plan in progress to kind of work within the parameters of where it's at right now. So I did want to cover that at the top end. Maybe take us back to like, what's the history of mule deer on Catalina?
They were brought there in 1929 by the Wrigleys, who owned the entire island at the time. And I believe they brought 12 deer there, and they brought them there for hunting. And since then, obviously, the population has grown. They say, Dr. Denhart says that by 1948, there was over 2,000 deer. I have some issues with that, because if we just say it was 2,000 deer, that means that's a 32% growth rate, which is that's just pretty wild. And also it's a 32% growth rate on top of all of those other livestock that were there. So you have competition for the habitat and the food. So to have that type of a growth rate is kind of hard to believe.
Sure.
But the number that they state was there in 1948 is actually the same number that they're stating is there today. They're saying today it's 2,100 deer. So, I mean, that's the history. They've been there. The hunting program has been, you've been able to hunt deer on the island, I think, throughout that entire time. They've had a PLM permit since it is private land. We have a private lands management permit that's been in place for several decades. And the deer have never been, on Catalina Island, they have never been classified as an invasive. They are treated as a California mule deer by CDFW, which I think is very important in this entire argument. So that's wildlife owned by the people, right? And CDFW manages that. So yeah, I mean, that's the history of the mule deer that are there, and obviously there was a lot of other livestock and animals that are there. The only thing left now is bison. There's 90 bison and mule deer, and then they have their fox and some quail and other stuff that rats and cats and dogs and all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
right. So
I thought the bison thing was so interesting, since you brought the bison part up, when she's like, oh yeah, the bison aren't reproducing, and you're like, is it potentially going to go down to 0? And she's like, well, potentially, and was like totally avoiding that whole scenario in a weird, awkward way. It
was very weird. Yeah. I mean,
like everything though that she discussed was always like weird and very awkward. And like totally seemed like a politic answer. Like, I'm not going to tell you the truth, but I'm going to tell you what we want people to hear.
And I guessed at, I've got some inside people in the Conservancy, and people have told me things, and that's really all I could talk about because they weren't going to talk about it. I just took a guess at what this means. I don't think they want that number to be 0. I think it's up in the air. There's definitely people in the Conservancy, and there's definitely purists who are, yeah, let's get rid of all the bison too. But it is a major tourist draw. That's going to cause more controversy. I mean, they have, safari trucks and all that to go look at the bison. It's a part of their business model, right? Yeah. The obvious answer would have been 0 if they're not reproducing. Like, okay, I didn't even really at the time. I didn't even know what I was asking. Like I was asking an obvious question. I wasn't trying to. I didn't know when I interviewed them. I actually didn't know the answers to a lot of those questions at the time. I was just asking questions, and I found out later after I had this footage and I'd showed it to certain people that had been involved, and they're like, "Well, this isn't true at all." Like the doe hunt, the doe focused hunt that they said they had. I believed her when she said that. When we were right there talking to each other, I said, "Oh, that's cool that you have that. It's amazing you haven't been able to drop the population." Well, then I started looking at the PLM reports and all the data, and then I talked to the outfitter finally, because he couldn't talk. He was under contract. So I had not been able to talk to him at all until this year when they let him go. So all of that stuff I found out, and eventually it's like, man, I got all this footage. I think I might have enough for a documentary. I didn't set off to make this a documentary at all. I just had a bunch of footage just for social media and for, collecting information.
So we kind of jumped right in, but maybe run through and you did this documentary called Killing Catalina, which is essentially, about this proposal that the Conservancy, but maybe just, for people that maybe haven't seen it, what is their proposal and why?
Well, their proposal for mule deer is to eradicate them. They believe the number of mule deer that should exist on the island is 0, right? The reason why is for island restoration. They blame the lack of endemic plants from being lush all over the entire island on the mule deer, because the mule deer are browsing those plants, which they do. I'm not arguing that, which they do. The level of impact, I do argue that for sure. And the constant claim is we've tried hunting. We wish that would have worked, but it's never been able to lower the number. And I argue that because they didn't have a population plan to actually lower, a management plan to actually lower the deer numbers. But yeah, I mean, that's their, it's all island restoration to them. That's their goal. They've mixed in some fire danger claims with the mule deer, which is pretty wild,
Does that one add up to you?
No, I mean, they take a strange angle. Really, the angle they're coming from is if there's a fire, I think this is their angle. If there's a fire, the mule deer can prevent regrowth because of their browsing habits. But to extend that to claiming that mule deer are a fire risk is also really wild, because ungulates, they browse, right? And they already got rid of all the goats. I mean, we use goats all over California for fire mitigation. I still haven't found a firefighter who agrees with that. The chief of LA Fire completely disagrees with that assessment. They have an agenda, and I think they have science, but I think they're also stretching the science to get to this end, and that's what's really happening.
I think the one quote I wrote down was, "Taking deer away makes the island safer from fire." Like, just reading that out loud, it's like, how can anyone believe that?
I'm glad it was said. I'm really glad we got this documented, because all of this comes out of her mouth. She's saying it. I feel like if I was to say this is what they were saying without you hearing her say it, nobody would believe me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What role has hunting played up to this point? And then maybe my understanding is that Catalina is somewhat tough to hunt. I mean, they don't allow non-resident hunting, right?
No, they do.
Okay, gotcha. So maybe talk me through, what has been tried in regards to hunting.
Yeah. So I don't know for how many decades, but I have the PLM reports, the private land management reports from 2010 to present, and they had PLM before then. I just didn't bother to look at those reports. But if you're a local, you could hunt there, right? So the way the PLM works is you buy your tags from the state of California and you turn those into the Conservancy, and they give you PLM tags and to replace your general tags or whatever tag it is that you have in California. so locals can hunt there, and then they've had one outfitter on the island basically since 1998 for the most part. So you could also book through him to pay for a hunt. Those are obviously going to be more because guys are paying higher dollar, usually going to be more buck. You know, they're going after bucks. Not always though. And then somewhere around, it's funny because I can't nail down the date because it wasn't really advertised. But somewhere around 2019, 2020, they also let non-residents come in and do DIY hunts. Now, that wasn't advertised. I didn't notice it until 2023.
Gotcha.
It was kind of a secret. And
yeah, nor did I.
Yeah, a lot of people kept that as a secret, like a secret place to go hunt. But in 2023, that became public, and you could come there and hunt. And there was a lot of barriers to that hunt. So you can't camp anywhere in the interior. I talked to them about that. You know, you guys have campgrounds, and they considered it. They said, yeah, you know, maybe we'll put gun lockers in the campgrounds or whatever. But my point was, well, it'd make it a heck of a lot easier if we could actually hunt, if we could camp where we're hunting. Because the only other option is to stay in a tourist town, Avalon. Wake up in the morning in your Airbnb or your hotel, and, you know, you got your gun or your bow or whatever, and you can hike, you know, 6 miles uphill if you want on pavement where there's buses and everybody going by. You can get a taxi, which is at the very least. So, you know, if you're going to the first spot on the island where you can hunt, the very least is $200 a day.
Oh.
Yeah, the island company has one bus that hunters can take, and it gets you to the interior at like 10 a.m. All sorts of obstacles, right?
Yeah. I was reading one. It says a proof of firearms liability insurance with at least $500,000 coverage if using a firearm.
Yep. So you definitely had to have that, and you also had to buy a membership to the conservancy, and then, you know, it wasn't cheap.
Yeah, designated zones rotated on specific dates was another regulation I read. Another one was non-hunter accompanying a hunter must sign a lease of liability, cannot have weapons or hunt on their own tags. You mentioned the camping. It just, to me, it sounds like it looks like they've put just about every barrier that they potentially could to keep you from hunting.
Yeah, it certainly was, and some of that, to be fair, is technically outside of what they can control, but when you look at the whole island, the whole island is either the island company, which is owned by the Wrigley Rusacks, who created the conservancies themselves. They actually created the Catalina Island Conservancy, and they employ most of the island. And then you have the conservancy and you have the town of Avalon. So there's 3 players there, but, you know, 2 of them, the island company and the conservancy, they're very well mixed. I mean, you know, you got them on each board, and, you know, there's a lot of influence there. So there's things that certainly could have been done. It's really all about the access, the price. You know, people are willing to pay that because us hunters are crazy. You know, we'll pay whatever. It was really the access. It really was. And again, you know, I didn't even know about it. I knew I could book a hunt there in the past, but I didn't know about the DIY hunts and until 2023. So 2024 we got like a lot more access to the island. They allocated a lot more tags, and it was public. Everyone was talking about this now. Like, holy cow, you can hunt on Catalina Island, and they want to eradicate the deer, but we're going to try hunting first, right? So they did that, and in 2024, if we were to go off the Conservancy's numbers, which was at the time 1,800 deer, that season took out 22% of the population, right? The Conservancy called that a failure.
Wow.
I'm like, man, the average for 2010 to 2023 was 13% mortality from hunting. And then you actually made some steps with CDFW to increase access and allocate more tags, and now we're at 22%. They said, no, that was a failure. So then in 2025, they scaled it all back to locals only, which is only like 40 hunters at the most. That's it. Right.
Yeah. What is the public perception of people that actually live on the island of the deer and of hunting?
It's okay. Well, that's really
Mixed?
cool, actually. Yeah. So, there's not a lot of hunters there on the island, but it seems like it's really deeply ingrained into the island's history and the people that live there. They fish a lot. The guys and gals who do hunt, they feed, their friends and family. It's what they've grown up with. And what's really cool about this is it's really been something for me to see is that you have non-hunters, you have the Catalina Island Humane Society, all vouching for hunting as a solution, which is so
Right.
really, and not just on the island, but outside of that as well. They're like, why can't we use hunting to do this? They see the value in mule deer. They see the value in the meat that it can provide. And most of this pushback is actually coming from non-hunters, if you look at it as a whole. So it's pretty cool to see that for sure.
I mean, to me, from the Conservancy standpoint, it seems to me that they've found, or they've done studies, or they've pulled science that supports what ultimately is their end goal is just to eliminate hunting, right? Like let's get rid of the deer in the name of like habitat, flora and fauna, we'll put in quotations native, because you've got bison there, obviously you've got foxes that were at some point introduced as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me it looks like their ultimate goal is like, let's just eliminate hunting from the island, and let's use junk science potentially. One thing that was funny, and I don't mean to call the gal out, but one thing I thought was interesting is multiple times there in the documentary she keeps saying like, I've been at this for 4 years. I've been at this for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, 4 years is a drop in the bucket when you're talking.
I think she said afterwards, like, bring it on.
Yeah.
Like this, like a really defensive stance. Like, I've been at it for 4 years. Bring it on. Like, let's argue about this. Like,
yeah. Well, and that was all about the management plan. And,
Sure.
Again, I wish at the time I knew what I knew now. Because I was seriously just asking questions, and I had some ideas. But let's just back up to this. First of all, to come up with a management plan, you got to have an accurate population goal, right?
Right.
I took issue with that. They're using spot surveys.
Mm-hmm.
Those are used in different circumstances to get an idea. They're nowhere close to being accurate at all, right? So the first thing was, and she's like, oh, this is peer reviewed, very accurate, blah, 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 robust. I'm like, a spotlight survey? Help me out here. That I can't find anybody who agrees with that. So they're basing their numbers on that, and everything hinges on that, right? So the impacts to the island, all that hinges on that. If there really is less than 1,000 deer, which many people think there are, well, then I think, the outcome of the impact is going to be a lot different if there's a lot less deer, right? But
For sure.
that number is important, or a more accurate number is important, because then you can actually come up with a management plan. But first of all, set a goal, which was never, ever, ever done. They never said, let's get the 500 deer, let's get the 800 deer. So they called it a failure, but they never defined success. And that's what I'm really taking issue with. It's not, I mean, yes, if you want to call these deer invasive, I can understand that argument. But if you're going to say we have accurate population assessments, I'm going to disagree with that. So I'm going to take issue with that. And if you're going to say we've tried hunting to reduce the population, I'm going to take issue with that, because you haven't. And I think this all really comes down to values. There's no eradication in this instance. There's no value to eradicating these deer. The meat gets wasted, right? And I find value in hunting and actually using that, using the meat from the deer. And just when something is agenda driven like this, it's worth it to not only expose it that it's coming from the Conservancy, but my extreme displeasure now in CDFW with going along with this. And it's very political when it gets to that point, because it's only the director that will talk about this. The guys and gals that I would normally talk to about this, they're like, this is above our heads. We can't talk about it. So I'm like, okay, so who bought and paid for this? Who's making this happen? You know? You're not going to trick CDFW into, hey, we tried hunting, we tried a management plan. Obviously they would look at it and go, no, you haven't. You know, I mean, come on, they're the experts on this. But the people that are making the decisions on that side are people that are appointed by the governor.
Yeah. Do you know, this is a curious little exercise. Have you ran this subject through something like a Chat GPT? Perchance? Have you tried that?
What do you mean? Like the...
Yeah, so I did a little experiment yesterday afternoon, and I just put what is the history of mule deer on Catalina, and then I ran through just another search, like what is this proposal to remove mule deer from Catalina Island, and if the results don't scare you a little bit, I'd be surprised, because it basically goes down and outlines her argument like word for word about all the good things. And I pushed it and pushed it and pushed it to a point where I said, I don't really believe what you're saying. And it kicked back. I asked the question, do you believe what the Conservancy has to say about deer? And it says, part of it, yes, part of it, no. But I had to really, really, really push it to get to a point to like give me two sides of the story, which I thought was really interesting. So if you're up for a fun little thought exercise, you might try that this afternoon. But it certainly did make me think twice about what I read in Chat GPT.
Well, that's all based on really what they've put out there.
Yeah,
and they call it settled science. Like, the science is settled. She has written that out so many times. Like, the science is settled on this. The science is clear. When I talk to biologists and when I talk to professionals in this area, they're like, no, it's not clear at all. Just and not on should deer be there or not. That's kind of it's almost a different argument. I'm talking about the science is settled on using spot surveys to get a count. The science is settled on we've tried a management plan to reduce no, those are all hard numbers that people or agencies or whoever come up with to get there. It's not, you can't just say you've tried hunting. Like, hunting in and of itself isn't necessarily a management plan. You have to define, what are you managing to? Keep the population stable, increase the population, or lower it. And then that management plan will spell those goals out to get there, right? And that's where it's crazy for me to hear a scientist say these things out loud, but not articulate, because it's not there, but not being able to articulate what a management plan really means. And when we got into that, and this bugs me, of course, she said, oh, we've had a doe first harvest program for 10 years. And then when you find out that that's not true, well, what are we dealing with here? I mean, that's either true or not. It's very easy to find out and to see if that was put in place. And it 100% was not. It was put in for the locals. So like 20, maybe 40 people at the most. It was only put in for them, which that's going to have no impact at all. The outfitter did like 70% of the overall hunts on the island every year. He was responsible for 70% of those hunts. And if that wasn't placed on him, a requirement on him, then it's going to have no impact, Right.
Yeah. Like I said yesterday, I went down this exercise, but I did finally kind of work down. And I think I want to include some of this language that it kicked out. So basically I said, talk to me about the Conservancy's argument. It said hunting doesn't work is what their argument is not the same thing as hunting can't work. It said the Conservancy has framed it like this: we've tried hunting and it failed. But what that actually means is that they tried limiting access hunting, short seasons, transportation bottlenecks, social constraints. And then also the same thing that you brought up, that they never actually, decided on an end goal, right?
Right.
And then the last thing that I read, I thought that was really interesting, that like resonates with me in regards, if I had to wrap this up with a bow, this would be it for me. It said that it didn't mean you didn't fail at hunting, you failed at committing to hunting as a tool. And to me, that's like, that's the whole thing in a bow, right? Like hunting didn't fail. You failed at committing to hunting as a population management tool and a strategy to maintain, both habitat and, flora, fauna, and, give people the opportunity to go out and go hunting. So to me, like, if I had to boil it all down, like, that's where it really lands for me. And like, it's, in the light of everything else that's going on, if you look at a state like Colorado or Oregon, to me, it's just like another means where somebody was like, you know what, we just don't want hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks.
I think that's what it is, and I could be wrong on this. I could be wrong on what I was going to say, but I still respect Dr. Denhart. I do. My personal feelings is that she's also being told what to say on some of these issues. When I spoke with her about meeting with conservation groups and meeting with Robbie Kroger and these people who wanted to really sit down and discuss a hunting program, a 5-year program.
Mm-hmm.
She told me she'd be all for that. She would love it if she didn't have to worry about this anymore. And we had a meeting set up, which would have happened about a year ago now. And about 2 weeks before that meeting, it was canceled. I got an email from, I think, the PR lady or something saying, hey, we're not going to do this. We're going in a different direction. So there's some other players here. And I still want to think she would have explored that.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think like this is her career. She's got a PhD in this. This is going to follow her around forever. And right now it doesn't. I would not want this following me around. There's things that have been said that are just challenged at every level of wildlife biology and science that I've been able to find. You know, and this is a different problem, but I couldn't have CDFW biologists in this documentary because they're not allowed to talk about it. I couldn't even have biologists that work for other state agencies and other states because of their collaboration with CDFW. And they would tell me, hey, I'll tell you this and this and that, privately, but I can't. It can't be in the documentary. And that sucks. It's another huge problem we can talk about later, a different time. But we deal with this state by state by state. You brought up Colorado and we got Oregon, but in Colorado with Prop 127, we couldn't get the experts to speak.
Mm-hmm.
We had Dan had to say it, I had to say it, or whoever else had to say it from information that we know or whatever that we hear. We couldn't actually hear the on the ground experts who've been doing mountain lion studies for 13 and a half years or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
They're throttled. We should be able to hear from those experts in an objective way, in an objective way, but because at the end of the day, it all just comes down to propaganda, frankly, on both sides. Like, here's our argument, there's their argument. And it's like, we should not be treating wildlife management, science, whatever you want to call it, that way. It's ridiculous. I don't think we treat, engineering that way. Let's get this out into the public, the court of public opinion. That'd be insane, and that's another issue we can talk about later, but it is something I'm working on now to try and bring some solutions to that.
Gotcha. So in regard to this Catalina, I assume you have next steps. Is there anything that, the public, anybody that would listen to this podcast could be, aware of and that they could help with? Is there anything that we can do?
Certainly. So we do have a take action on our website, and that is basically making a lot of noise to CDFW, to various politicians that have been involved, just different players in this whole thing. And we have offered CDFW and the Conservancy, and we're doing this formally with our coalition as well. Hey, in the name of science, in the best available science, we always hear the best available science, we will pay for a thermal drone survey. I have 15 licensed pilots to do this. We already have the island gridded out, like, to do this. The work's already done as far as how this is going to work. We'll pay for that. We'll work with CDFW. Let's get an accurate count. And instead of a 5-year eradication plan, let's have a 5-year plan that'll get the number down to whatever number we come up with. What do you want that number to be? And I know we can get down to that number. And once we get there, I don't know what would happen after that, but at least to some extent, we can put some value to these mule deer. You know what I mean? And there's a new director that just was appointed to CDFW. To my knowledge, she has had nothing to do with this Catalina issue. I think that'd be a great fresh start for her to show that, yeah, she's going to put science first. She's going to put data first and do these things right, or at least propose that, voice that to the Conservancy, because it's still CDFW. You know, you can't just do what you want to wildlife. This is a state game species, right? So it's still up to CDFW on what management should look like. So that's the ask. And then, like I said, there are some, if we can't get those things accomplished, there are some lawsuits.
Gotcha.
Sure. Yeah.
I was driving down today. I was thinking about this subject, and it was just interesting to me. I thought it's funny that you probably have proponents for this, that they're like, you know what, we're going to eliminate a species. We're going to eliminate mule deer in the name of, maybe flora, plants that we don't feel like they're going to rebound. But then if you were to take the same individuals and propose them with, the issue of wild horses and burros and reducing them for the same issue to rebound fauna and flora, then we throw up the stop sign, like, no, we can't do that. It's, to me, it was just such a conflict, a juxtaposition, if you will. I'm just like, this is the same topic. Where, you know what I'm saying? It's just so strange to me.
There's definitely some parallels there. It's also apples and oranges. This is an island, the wild horses or feral horses and burros, they cover multiple states. I think our government spends $150 million a year on them also, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are different about that as well. And even with them, I personally would love it if we could if we could hunt those horses, if we could manage those horses.
Me too.
People would do it also, and in tons of other countries, it's no big deal at all. People eat horse. I think that'd be a cool step. But I mean, they need to be reduced as well. I get it.
Yeah.
And maybe the deer on Catalina need to be reduced, but I can't have that conversation until I have a better number of what's there. Yeah, and all the stuff in the documentary where it's like, listen, we don't even have these many deer. So I just can't even come to a conclusion. Like, let's just do it right. Let's get the number.
Yeah. And what's crazy to me is like you said, it's an island.
Yeah.
I just pulled it up, 22 miles long, 8 miles across, roughly, 54 miles of coastline, 48,000 acres. Like, you can legit do, like you're saying, a thermal drone population study in no time to actually know what it is before you're just like, we got to go eradicate them. Like, there's things that can be done. They can't escape. You can get an accurate count very easily in that small of an area.
And that's why we went there to do the kind of the test run to see what the canopy, would, if it was going to hide basically to see if the drones would work. And, I mean, we were finding mice and all kinds, birds, all kinds of stuff with the thermal drones. But what we did find was, there's some areas where there's high density of deer, and then there's some areas where there's hardly any deer at all, and some with, a few deer. And so the way they do spotlight surveys, they'll go out for 3 nights. I don't know, they'll count, all right, we found 300 deer. they'll extrapolate that number to the size of the island, and that's assuming the deer density is the same on the island. Like, all right, that's just not true. And if anything that we showed with the thermal drones, that part isn't true.
Yeah, every good deer hunter knows that.
And there's a lot of deer that hang out around the golf course there.
Yeah,
so
sure.
you can't. Not the same. It's just not.
Yeah, not the same.
Yep.
Okay. Brady, do you have any other questions about Catalina? I did want to ask some other questions, just other topics that you're tracking. If you guys have got any other questions, we'll throw those in now about Catalina. If not, we'll move on.
No, just would definitely suggest people go check out the film. It's very well done.
Agreed. Yeah, check that out, and then follow up with Howl's website on where they can send emails or voicemails or messages to California to kind of support some sort of management plan that actually makes sense. I heard you on another podcast recently talking about black bears in California, about populations. Did I hear you say something like 80,000?
Yeah. So what's awesome is our department did do a really fantastic, I don't know how many years, at least 5-year black bear study, collecting DNA samples from hair and, tons of trail cams, just all sorts of different tools to get a new population, because it had been at 36,000 forever. And so they did another study, and they're like, man, it's looking like it's between 60 and 80,000 black bears in California, which makes it second to Alaska.
Did you hear that, Brady?
Really? Second? Well, I've definitely heard it because I've talked secretly about it, that how excited I am to go hunt black bears there and why I want to kill blacktail there as well.
We have a lot of bear here. We definitely have a lot of bear here. You'll often hear, and I guide black bear hunts too, so I'm in there after them all the time. But you'll often hear a lot of guys say they saw more black bears than deer when they're out hunting. Depends on where you are, of course, But it's nothing to see, you're out deer hunting and like, man, I saw 6 or 7 bears today, and 3 deer. So there's a lot of black bear here. Yeah.
Does that end? I mean, do you think hound hunting's been eliminated, right, from a possibility? Do you think that's something that you could ever see coming back? If you've got populations that are growing at that rate, I mean, 80,000 is a lot of black bears.
It could happen. We almost got a bill passed last year. We actually had the majority of the vote, but it needed to be like 67% majority, and I think we got 60 or something. And what it would have done is we would have been able to haze bears with lions. It would have accomplished that. And then with dogs. Yeah, haze bear with lions. That's a new.
With lions. Yeah.
Haze bears.
Train lion.
Yeah, with dogs. And then it would give the decision back, because it was taken away through the legislature to use hounds for lethal take of bear. It would have given the decision back to the commission. So then the battle to get that back would have been at the commission, which is where it should be.
Yeah.
Whatever your commission is, and however, that's where these battles should be. I think that's like the most perfect solution in North America. It's not perfect, but it would have done that. So we got really close to doing that. So do I think it's possible? Yeah. I mean, I know it's possible. It's gonna be all about the messaging and the effects that predators have on ungulates, the cryptoparasitism that's taking place, and there's awesome studies on this where bear are just stealing all the mountain lion kills, and the mountain lions are just killing and killing and killing, because they're not going to fight the bear. They're like, I'm just going to go kill another deer, right? So I mean, the studies on that are wild. What was it, in a 12-day period, one lion killed 12 deer because it would kill one and a bear would be on it immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really wild, the effects that they can have on the ungulate population. And then, of course, you add wolves, and lions aren't going to defend their kills on wolves. So it just really amplifies the whole thing. So, the biggest thing is it's always, whenever we deal with anything like this, it's like one extreme or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Can't have hunting because it's going to kill everything. It's going to take it all away. Like, no, it's impossible. It's literally impossible in our current North American model of wildlife conservation to do that. No, it reduces the numbers to quotas. It reduces the numbers, or that's the hope at least, right? Reduces the numbers to what the experts in your state say, this is what this population should be, this is what this population should be. And that's all based on habitat, human impact, development, all of those things. And it's always changing. Yeah. I think that's reasonable. And I think when you talk to most people about this, if you're able to have the conversation and spell these things out, I think they agree with that as well. But the only thing they see is, we can't have bear hunting because, we're going to, the anti-hunting's message is, we're going to exterminate all the bears. That's what they say. They say crazy stuff like that. People wake up in the morning and they see it on the news and they're like, oh yeah, I don't want all the bears killed. So they just vote no against it. But they don't know what's going on. They don't know what wildlife management is at all. So it's all education.
You live in San Francisco, right?
Just south of, yeah.
Just out. Do you feel like the direction of, at least to me, like from an outside looking in, on the podcast that I listen to and kind of the content that I consume, I hear a lot of talk of like, people saying like, man, there are a lot of lions in California. There are a lot of black bears in California. Like people that don't hunt, I hear people saying, bringing it up more and more often. And I'm wondering, is there does it feel like there's a shift maybe potentially happening in like, hey, just the common man is like recognizing that, hey, we might actually have a problem. Like we might actually have reducing ungulate populations. We might actually have, issues of public safety due to the number of lions or bears that exist on the landscape. Does it feel like it's shifting that way, or is that just like a pipe dream for me?
Well, I feel like the conversation is coming up more, which is good because it gets people thinking about it more. You know what I mean? And it's almost like it's the, what's the saying, like no press is bad press kind of a thing. The conversation's happening more. So hopefully, at least some people are actually looking into it and they get interested in it and they're like, I didn't know that. So the more that we, our side, our industry, whatever, can put out good information, the better that's going to do. I mean, if we only have up to go, we're not going to go down. I really don't, if we actually put out that effort, we're not going to get less support for hunting. We're only going to get more. But we have to put the work in, to actually educate the public on the system that's in place, what all this really means, why we do it, why we don't do it, all the things. But we don't do that. You know what I mean? But the more we do, Colorado's a perfect example with Prop 127, right? You guys know, of course. I mean, come on. It was mountain lion hunting. Most hunters don't hunt mountain lions. Mm-hmm. Blue state of Colorado, the public voted to keep mountain lion hunting. It happened. It will work. Education does work. Can't just do it once because, Colorado's facing a multitude of other issues that we'll all be working on with Dan, but it's a continual, pressure that we have to keep up and God, I mean, we just got to do a lot more of it. Like we don't even scratch the surface really, if you ask me.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that the lion hunting issue that popped up in Colorado that kind of, showed me, because I think when you talk to people, they're always like, well, I don't know what to do. And I think if that situation showed me one thing, that it's, you don't have to do anything necessarily grandiose, right? It's really just like grassroots, talking to your neighbor, talking to your buddy, your friends, your cousins, or whoever it might be. I mean, I've got family that lives in Colorado. I've got friends that live in California. I don't think it necessarily has to be like some grand gesture, it's just like the little conversations.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I can't measure that impact, but I do know that that helps. But I actually do think we need mechanisms set up that are grandiose. And what I mean is
Sure.
mechanisms from um I don't know what you want to call it, the hunting community, industry, NGOs, like literally as a whole. I do think we need mechanisms set up. Um, you've probably seen this, and I'm working on this, but it's gonna be way more than me, obviously. I think if we take the approach of let's dedicate a certain amount of the pie to public education, not to get people to hunt, not like an R3 thing or anything like that, but frame the messaging for the general public and start putting those on public facing whatever, billboards, TV, Super Bowl ads, something like that. But it goes back to no press is bad press kind of a thing. We got to spark the conversation, get people interested, say things that where people look at a billboard and go, how, and this is just an easy one, how is hunting a conservation tool? What do you mean? Hunting and conservation? Like, because most people, they don't know that. They don't think of that. And lead them somewhere. Lead them somewhere where they can find out more. Have the backlash happen. Because now we're having the conversation. Now we're open to debate, and we can get the smart people who can articulate these things like, okay, let's sit down and have a talk about this. Next thing you know, it's on the news. Next thing you know, people who don't generally talk about it, now the conversation's being had. Because I think if we have the reasonable argument. It's almost like we're scared of it, but we have the reasonable argument. The anti-hunters do really well because they'll show a picture and they'll have a tagline. But after you scratch the surface, their argument really goes away. And I think that the full context of the North American model, conservation, food, wild food to table, whatever, you can pick and choose. There's just so many good things we can talk about. We will start changing minds, but we have to put it in front of them, I think, at a grand scale. And, overall as an industry, we're a multi-billion-dollar industry. We got to take a piece of that pie. And I don't know exactly how to do that. It's like we need a summit, like you guys and everybody else. Let's get together and talk about like the awesome stuff that people did in 1937 to put Pittman Robertson together and Teddy Roosevelt, conservation of wildlife. We've been living off the interest of those folks for a long time. I think that interest is gone, and we're dipping into our principle, and we're going to be out if we don't come up with something new soon to do. And I think this is what we need to do. This is the way to go. It's public education. I mean, we're now living in a time with media and social media. We have all the access. We have it. We even have the money, but we got to spend it in the right place. I think that's what we do.
Yeah. I like that. I like the idea of a billboard. It's a fun idea, to be honest.
Billboards in every metropolitan city, get on the subway, awesome. You see something, go in the airport, you see something, I mean, who's going to be against that? I mean, like, how cool would it be for us to see that, right? When we go,
for sure,
we're like, wow, look at that. Like, that's pretty rad, Grizzly bears are a conservation success story, talking about delisting them. Grizzly bears are a conservation success story.
Yeah.
Let's, just to spark the conversation. Let's have hard conversations, but we gotta actually do it. We gotta put it out there, Yeah.
You have to have a catalyst to be able to start conversations for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Maybe we should do a billboard, Brady. You got to run right here. You got to run 100 miles this year to raise some money for it. Your own billboard.
Done. I'll run all around Catalina Island.
Yeah.
There you go. I love that idea. Very good. Anything else that you're tracking, Charles, that you think people ought to be aware of?
Well, yeah, there's IP28, which you brought up.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do now is it's education on what IP28 is. You could do like a decline to sign thing, but they're probably going to get the signatures. The biggest thing is register to vote and make sure you go vote. You know, all the education is going to be out there, but it's not going to matter if people don't vote. When they passed Prop 114, whatever the wolf reintroduction was in Colorado, that was lost by 33,000 votes. That's it, right? There was a ton of, I've seen some stats, there was a ton of licensed, hunting license holders in Colorado that didn't vote, like somewhere around 100,000. I've heard some wild numbers, and I'm like, God, that's insane. Like, none of this would be happening. None of this should be happening in Colorado right now if we would have done what we should have done back then. You know what I mean? And collaborate together and all that stuff. That's the big things on 128. And, it's legislative season, so there's always going to be, new things coming in, as we go in the next few weeks and few months. But we are working on the right to hunt and fish and to get that at the state constitutional level in Ohio. We're working with IOTR on that, the International Order of T. Roosevelt, which if you guys don't know about that org, it's not TRCP, it's IOTR. Their whole mission is right to hunt and fish at the state constitutional, and they're the ones responsible for Florida last year, right? So we're working on Ohio. I did just see that BHA is running some campaigns to do the same thing in New Hampshire and maybe another state as well. So we're going to see what we can do to help them out.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. We're actually gonna talk to Dan later today. So just here in a few minutes, we got Dan Gates. We're gonna jump over and kind of talk to him about Colorado. So we'll dive into that. But I appreciate your time. I enjoyed, as much as you can enjoy a documentary about the proposal to eliminate mule deer.
I appreciate that.
I thought it was well done. And I would encourage people to go watch it and then participate where we can. But yeah, thanks for all you do. I genuinely appreciate everything that you're out there doing for hunting and fishing.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. I really do. You guys are different. You guys are different than a lot of others, and you get involved, and I love that. I mean that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
We're different, all right, huh, Brady?
We definitely are. I will not.
We're some odd ducks. Yeah.
Different in a good way.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Bye.
Yep. Appreciate you guys.
See ya.
I would 100% agree. I was just walking around with my head cut off when I was in Reno.
What did he look?
One conversation to the next.
Yeah.
What did he look like in Reno, Dan?
It looked like he'd been working very hard and was diligently trying to represent the brand in a manner that was almost impractical.
Love to hear that. That's my guy.
See, Brady, you owe me a beer.
So. I definitely could have used a few at that show.
Brady was shaking all the hands and kissing all the babies.
Yeah, we had the first time we ever had a booth there, and Wild Sheep gave us a booth, and they were supporting our efforts on their calendars for the Women of Conservation, and they've been very supportive of our efforts that we're doing here. And it was a wild ride because I haven't done shows to any magnitude for quite some time. And when they said, we'll give it to you, and the girls were highlighted at the women's luncheon, and they were at the women's hunt booth, and Women Hunt was a sponsor along with Wild Sheep on our calendar. And it was a good deal. It's just that it was funny because there was one time that, I'm not an influencer. I mean, it's becoming, obvious that people think so, but that you have Charles Whitwam, you have Robbie Kroger, you have Jana Waller, Jules McQueen, Shane Mahoney, and Randy Newberg standing in our booth. and it was like, people were walking by going, what is that? Who is that? And of course,
that's an all-star cast right there.
Yeah. My dumb bearded ass standing there with pretty calendar girls. And I'm like, okay, you want to buy a calendar? So
I think you should do a calendar, Dan. That'd be a good one. I bet that would be a hot ticket item.
I think it might raise some money on the anti side of things for sure. They could turn around and they'd know exactly what I look like and what I wear. And I thought about doing it with one of those barrels around me to where,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like the guys used to go over the falls with, right?
Yeah. I could lay on like a skunk blanket and pose with my,
yeah. I'm seeing this.
Yeah.
I definitely will say right now, though, you probably have the coolest background of anyone I've ever podcast with before. Like that background right now, and you're wherever you're at, looks legendary.
This is the apartment that's attached to the barn, and I don't have the full internet access. You think this is cool? Wait till you see the podcast room that we built, this is a collection of memoirs from the last 40 years, 50 years of my life. And but we put together a building and we put together a podcast room, and I'm just waiting to get the electronic side of it set up because I'm too much of a knuckle dragger to get that stuff. So I'm still in the apartment.
Yeah, well, that looks cool. Looks like a great spot to hang.
Thanks. If you're ever in Colorado, you can come stay in it. It's got a good two beds and a bathroom and a little kitchen, and so it's a cool setup.
We might take you up on that sometime.
Yeah, honestly, don't tempt us with a good time like that. I definitely
more than. And if you ever want to hunt turkeys, I've got a couple places in Colorado here, just close to our place, that you would think that you had gone and died to turkey heaven. So
sounds right up my alley.
I was going to say Lorenzo might take you up on that now that duck season's over. He's probably jonesing bad to get a shotgun back in his hands.
We got some badass turkey spots.
We appreciate you jumping on with us, Dan. You're always great to be a guest. I'm always interested in what you have to say because I know that you're tracking issues that we all need to be aware of way more than I'm tracking them. Like you live this, you live this day in and day out. We talked a little bit earlier how when, I got into this job, I thought I would be talking, about, backpacks and binoculars and hunting spots, when in reality, there's increasingly more and more of, law and policy and, attempts to essentially take away what we all hold near and dear and, a lifestyle and a way of life. So I appreciate you putting that effort into. I'm sure it's exhausting.
It's becoming more and more trials and tribulations because the more that we win, the more that our opposition builds off of that. And that's nationwide. They use it as a rallying cry, a call to action on their fundraising and efforts. And if we lose once, if our community lose once, we're liable to turn around and continue to lose on multiple levels because a lot of our supporters and a lot of our community as a whole, they don't like putting time into something that they lose. And so they just don't, historically, they just haven't been willing to belly up to the bar again after a loss. And we've never lost here. We've been fortunate. We didn't fight wolves because we were fighting all these other issues. So I don't consider that a loss because we didn't get to the plate. But we are 25-0 since 2007 and ballot initiatives, legislation, and commission stuff. And I don't intend on losing, but if we do, you're going to lose a hell of a tremendous base.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easier to keep winning, to lead than it is to try to come back from something that would be so detrimental that we may not be able to organize to come back from.
Well, and two trail, some of this is once regulations have been put in place or if statutes have been made or a ballot initiative, just like on 127, to get that back is 5 times the effort to try to keep it. And that's why we put so much into all these efforts, because we don't want to have to go back and try to reverse something, because that's almost impossible.
Yeah. So you, when we corresponded via email, you said that there's some major issues on the table, on the horizon. Do you want to just jump right in and kind of give us a landscape of where things are right now? Like, what are the issues? What are the things that you're working towards?
I think for anybody that remembers what we did just 18 months ago with Proposition 127, the mountain lion hunting ban, the bobcat hunting ban, in conjunction with Ordinance 308, which was the fur ban in the city and county of Denver, that would have prohibited cowboy hats and fishing lures and Native American crafts, and it would have shut down a significant industry for the National Western Stock Show and the sports shows and the powwows and the Indian markets, the Mile High Hunt and Fish Expo. People couldn't have been able to turn around and do a lot of their business there because of the wording of that. Well, that was defeated by 17 points. 127 was defeated by 10.5 points. And now our enemies have retooled and rearmored themselves, and they've gotten new jobs with new organizations. And I'll call them out just to where people can recognize. But the Center for Biological Diversity, which I'm sure we're all just members of. You guys probably pay your dues in weekly.
Yep.
Maybe you do sponsorships for them. I don't know. But and for anybody's listening, that's a joke. So just to make sure that GOHUNT is not sponsoring the Center for Biological Diversity. Brady's time at the next show is going to be a lot worse if they think that. So
I'm going to be answering a lot of weird questions coming up.
So the kudos I gave you, Lorenzo's going to start questioning your relevancy. But Samantha Miller, who ran the campaign of Cats Aren't Trophies, now works for the Center for Biological Diversity. And Mark Searles, who is with Project Coyote, who also worked on the Cats Aren't Trophies campaign, is instigating a lot of this legislation and a lot of these citizens' petitions that the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission will hear. And I can't make things up to the magnitude of what I'm going to explain them. But I will tell you that everything that is on the list, like what you had mentioned about, I think it's IP28 in Oregon.
Yeah.
Similarities are here in very many different iterations of that. It's not all combined into one. They figured out that maybe we get a little bite of the apple, and we get a little bite from the commission, and we get a little bit from the legislature, and we start to formulate these actions to where it almost becomes, obvious that everybody should adhere to these ideologies and these practices, because multiple forms of government have undertaken these things in incremental steps. We have in the legislature, we have a rodenticide bill, which, that's not really what GOHUNT and what I would rather do is talk about rodenticides. But they're trying to ban the killing of rats and mice in the state of Colorado. People think, how much lunacy is that? Well, if you look at IP28 and look what they're doing in Oregon, this is a trend that is continually building. And the reason it's important to recognize here, even if somebody doesn't think it's in their wheelhouse, there's not a person I know that hasn't had a mouse problem at some point in time in their life. Maybe it was grandma's kitchen, maybe it was in the garage, maybe it was at a restaurant. You'd not be able to do any of that here if this piece of legislation passes. But the interesting thing is Mark Searles, who's with Project Coyote, is the instigator behind that piece of legislation to these legislators. And he's also running this other stuff with Samantha Miller through the commission to ban the sale of fur statewide and all fur bearer products, which would circumvent, as I mentioned, Ordinance 308 that the city and county of Denver voted down in 2024 by 17 points. They're attempting to try to get what they want on a lame duck governor session and capitalize on the animal rights agenda that the first gentleman and the governor have imposed by selections and nominations to different cabinet positions and different commissions. And you start looking at what they want to do behind the fur ban itself. Their goal is to stop all fur bearer harvest, and to derail and erode the entire Chapter 3 classification of fur bearers and small game in the state of Colorado. They want to impose a coyote season, which we have none right now, but they want to go from October 1st to December 31st. They want to make it illegal to harvest 7 of the 17 fur-bearing animals, including swift fox, gray fox, red fox, pine marten, mink, and ringtail cat, along with beaver, which is a separate conversation because beavers are a keystone species, and now they're running a beaver bill in the legislature. And CPW has already come up with a beaver management strategy that does not include prohibitions on harvest, but they're trying to get CPW to modify that strategy to where there would be a prohibition on harvesting beavers in the state of Colorado. I run a wildlife control business, and I'm not for extirpation or total extermination of any species whatsoever. However, there is no science based on any of these claims, any of these allegations. It's all emotion, and it's all what they want to see happen because they don't believe that people should come first. They believe that wildlife should come first, and I think most of us believe that people should come first, and we should be stewards of wildlife to make sure that we don't turn around and make it a distant 10th or 11th, but it has to come second,
Right.
especially when you get into management, especially when you get into human health and safety issues. So I just appreciate you guys taking the time to talk about some of this stuff, because if you saw what our General Assembly is dealing with, we just had a deal come out about a lead ban bill that just was introduced this week, where you won't be able to turn around and use lead ammunition or lead fishing equipment in any way, shape, or form. If you saw what happened on Monday, there was a firearm barrel ban. So now the same individuals that created 003 last year that Parks and Wildlife is trying to figure out how to implement, which had to do with semi-automatic weapons, now they want you to do a background check through a licensed dealer for a barrel. It could be an additional shotgun barrel, or if you shoot a contender or a replacement barrel, or some sort of a. They haven't fully defined it, but what's interesting is, as we all know, barrels don't have serial numbers on them.
Correct.
And how do you turn around and do a background check on something that doesn't have a serial number? And do you have to do a dual background check for somebody that buys a gun with a barrel? Because there would be no way to turn around and figure out if that barrel was acquired legally, and if that barrel could be transferred to an individual that passed the background check. These are things that it's not just to Colorado. They're doing them in New Mexico, and they're doing them in Arizona, and they're trying to do them in Kansas, and they're trying to do them in Idaho and California and Washington and Oregon. And, I know that things in Nevada are not near as tumultuous right now because of your leadership and the change in the makeover there. But it's not always going to be that way, and we know that. And things that grab hold of when it comes to these legislative commission processes, that the public essentially has no word on, because they're attempting to circumvent the entire process of what has already been voted on by the people, or what has already been implemented by federal law.
Right.
What seems crazy to me is like they're just trying to throw out whatever sticks in whatever state and try to get that small win, and then it seems like it's just going to snowball after that.
Yeah.
With other states trying to do the same thing, like this Oregon thing. Sure, it's crazy, and you look at it like, yeah, it's never going to happen. But they're just trying to get awareness about it, and then they're going to modify things. And like you said earlier, like that's why the Colorado approach, they're trying to do smaller things. Like they could probably divide up the IP28 in Oregon into just hunting. It would probably go a lot further than what they're doing right now with the whole ranching and everything. But it's just like, if they get one win in Colorado here for some small thing about a fur ban, like you better believe Oregon's going to follow, California's going to follow, all these other states are going to have the crazy people over there doing the same thing. And it's just, I don't know. It seems like we're in very wild times right now in our life. Like, I think actually wild times.
And it's almost to the point to where they're not happy with what they got. So they want to go after something different, but they're the ones who proposed to try to make it that way to start with, and then they lost. And if you listen to what happened on the wolf deal, everybody says, well, the will of the people have spoken, and that passed by 1.8%. And I'm not going to stand there and argue, that it did or didn't pass, or we shouldn't adhere to the will of the people. I don't like the way it was done. I don't think the process was done appropriately for wolves and other wildlife species and the people that had to deal with wolves, which is proven by the fact that there's a wolf article in every paper every single day of the week in some capacity because of the mishandling of that, or the inappropriation of that, or maybe the misguided direction that it took from the start because of the governor's input. But it was the will of the people. I mean, our people didn't come out well enough to turn around and stop it. Well, but those same people that won on 114, the wolf issue, now want to argue that the will of the people doesn't matter when it comes to 127, which was 10 points, and the will of the people doesn't matter on 308, which was 17 points. It's like, yeah, but that's not what they meant. They meant this, or they meant that. And that's why they're coming to the legislature and coming to the commission, because they're trying to get a body of 100 in the General Assembly, or a body of 11, or actually it'll be 10 because we're missing the commissioner. But they want them to make the decisions after hundreds of thousands and millions of people have voted on different issues, and the will of the people should prevail in my mind. I mean, if you're going to hold it on one standard, you need to hold it on the other.
Yeah,
and I think that's where we're trying to get people to understand this is a circumvention, an attempt to circumvent the will of the people. And if this was a wildlife science-based related issue, by God, we would turn around and say, let's follow the science. That's what we've always said. That's what we've always adhered to. But when the scientists aren't allowed to intervene, the scientists aren't allowed to interject, and the commission or the legislature is not going to listen to the science and not going to listen to the facts and data, then it becomes just an overriding manipulation of the democratic process, especially we're not talking about something that was voted on 65 years ago and society has changed. We're talking about 18 months ago. And I think that's where people need to recognize is no matter what your stance is, if we're going to turn around and let individual bodies make these decisions and go these directions after the will of the people is already spoken, why do we have elections? Yeah. Why do we have processes? And I think that whether it's a sportsman or not, you have to acknowledge the fact that if we're going to go down that road, where do we stop and when does it actually come to fruition that we don't have a democratic process that's responsible, equitable, transparent, and accountable?
Yeah. There's so many different topics I wanted to ask you about, and I
always do that to you, Trail. So I'm sorry.
But you know what's funny is the one that I just can't get. I can't get it out of my head, and I can't move on until I say it. Is this rodenticide? Like it's I didn't even know about that, but I'm imagining telling my wife and my kids like, hey, if we got a mouse in the house, sorry,
can't kill it.
They're moving in.
Yeah,
like it's. What I can't wrap my head around.
And it includes glue boards too.
Oh,
so you can't use glue boards for insects or mice.
This is so weird.
If you Google rodent infestations or product insecurities or whatever, look at the recalls that some of these major corporations are doing right now as we speak about rodent infestations that is circulating to the top. I mean, they're clearing out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of product because they found rodent infestations. And that's with an integrated pest management system. That's with providing rodenticide and rat and mouse mitigation. If you don't do that,
you imagine, Lorenzo, you got a mouse in your house. You got to tell the wife and kids, sorry, they're moving in. I guess we got
a new roommate,
a new population of mice in the house.
Well, can you imagine going to Pizza Hut or Denny's or Applebee's and there's a disclaimer at the bottom that says, due to state law, we cannot employ rodent mitigation purposes and tactics. So if you find mice turds in your rice, don't worry about it. It's just a natural occurrence.
I was actually in Colorado at a Walmart buying groceries for a hunt and saw a mouse. I remember this vividly at this point when you brought it up. I saw a mouse running from aisle to aisle, and I remember thinking, that's odd.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
I really hope you don't back up out of that parking lot and run one over and someone took a video of it. And all of a sudden you can't go hunting because you're stuck in legislation about you killing a mouse.
Because you killed a mouse.
When I hear things like this, I'm like, I gotta be in a simulation. Like this has to be, because this is so out of this world. It just seems so ludicrous. It's hard to even wrap my mind around the fact that that's something that they're trying to push forward.
It's almost like a test on the awareness of society and the competency of legislators and decision makers. Yeah. And, just talking about the rodenticide deal, but look at the same thing on the rifle barrel ban.
Right. Yeah, I didn't want to diminish the other ones because certainly those are much more, pertinent to me and my loves. I just couldn't get over the fact that you wouldn't be able to kill a mouse in your house. Like that to me is just mind-numbing. Yeah. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
But it goes into this conversation because look at what California has implemented. Look at what Oregon is trying with this IP 28, which was I think it was IP 3 before, and look at the mindset of people that I consider to be adversarial, if not enemy-oriented toward my way of life. Not only do they not understand, they don't look at anything from a practical application of people first and then providing input besides restrictions or prohibitions on every single thing. There's never an alternative or a recommendation or a suggestion that says, what if we did this? No, their deal is just stop it all. Zero on everything. Instead of, we don't know enough about swift fox, so let's turn around and try to do some swift fox mitigation and some studying. No, let's just stop the harvest of swift fox. Well, it's the same thing on mice. We might be secondary poisoning other species in some capacity, depending on how many mice they ate or if they broke into a bait station. But the realization is we should figure out a way to solve our issues for human health and safety first, and then consider the other side of that. But if you're going to consider the other side, and I'll speak frankly, in 2008, I contracted hantavirus. I was one of very few individuals that turned around and was able to survive that. And I contracted a disease called Q fever back in 2001 when I was moose hunting in British Columbia. Both are similar respiratory, but they hadn't had anybody that they'd really run into that had the moist conditions of far north and then the dry conditions of the southwest to have these two interactions. And so I was on my deathbed for about 13 weeks in 2008, July to September of 2008. And we took every precaution known to man to turn around and protect ourselves in that process when we were doing this clean out at this particular job site for our business. And I still contracted it. The other workers that we had on site, they didn't. Part of it is, and I was wearing full head respirator. So anybody was saying, well, you're wearing a mask with a beard, it wouldn't have worked anyway. But I know what I did. I was sweating my ass off. And when I pulled the respirator off, there was sweat coming down my brow. And I wiped my hand across. I know damn good and well that's what it was. And of course, you still had the gloves on. You still had the Tyvek suit and everything. But my point is that rancher did everything that within their power over a 90-year-old structure to keep rodents out. And when we went in there when they were renovating to clean it out, we could see the years of attempts to be able to keep things at bay. Stop and think what it would have been if he didn't have any rodent mitigation for 90 years. The restaurants that we go to, the food storage commodity services, the nursing homes, the water treatment facilities. One thing, too, is I do work for 5 different utility companies, major utility companies, and today's wiring is soy-based. And so rats and mice are naturally attracted to it to strip it down. You can't even tell what color the wire is supposed to be. And we've done the same thing for vehicle manufacturers and car dealerships where they say these cars wouldn't start. They got a rodent infestation. That's not covered under warranty. You got any recommendations? Well, the entire car is wrapped in soy-based wires. And but it's palatable for rodents. And so to not be able to control that sort of stuff, but it goes into these other things. I said this when I was on the stakeholder advisory group for the wolf introduction. A wolf to somebody is a mouse to somebody else. And a mouse to somebody is a woodpecker to somebody else. Everybody's got a level of tolerance. And I would think that legislators would be concerned about human health and safety more than they would about if we are creating some sort of small secondary poisoning to other species of wildlife that is not detrimental to the wildlife population. It's detrimental to individual animals of that population, but it's not detrimental to species. But taking the Black Plague theory and saying we're going to just not kill rodents anymore, and I'm like, okay, well that's a lot more detrimental to people than it is to a few animals, species of wildlife.
I just keep thinking of that saying. What is it? Common sense is less common now, and like this to me is like a classic example. I'm just like, this is common sense. I mean, rodents.
Yes. Anyway. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about. I mean, you brought up wolves and. Reading an article about them every other day. I was curious as to what is the latest, what is going on with Colorado's wolf population and where it's at.
Well, we're down about 50% of the total introduced population because of a variety of different things. Some have died in state, some have died out of state, and had a variety of different circumstances. Is anybody that's paid attention, Jeff Davis, our director that came from Washington, I mean, he got terminated, but they allowed him to resign. And then he took a job with the state of Wyoming as the deputy director up there working for Angie Bruce. And Jeff is a nice guy. I'm not going to say anything bad about Jeff. Jeff was put into an impossible situation.
Right.
And I've had criticism with people turn around and say, you're supporting a wolf activist. I'm supporting the guy that really thought he could make a difference and do something, but he didn't know that he was going to have a undermining, manipulating governor to turn around and take effect on every single decision that Colorado Parks and Wildlife made. We will not get wolves this winter. That letter came from Director Nesvik to Jeff Davis before he left, and then Acting Director Laura Clellan, who replaced Director Davis, has been working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and that letter was sent back to them as far as a response and on the cease and desist. But we won't be getting wolves this winter. It's left up in the air whether we're going to get wolves in December or up until, I think, January 12th of 27. That's when Governor Polis is out. I would doubt that we're going to get wolves immediately thereafter, depending on what other governor takes the place. But we know that Polis is going to do whatever he can to try to put wolves on the ground when it's conducive for the wolf and for acquisition. One thing I want to mention about that, though, is a lot of people are questioning some of our statements that we've made about a listing and delisting, and that I think it's House Bill 845 that Congresswoman Lauren Boebert introduced about delisting. I think most of us would be a proponent of delisting, except for Colorado and the people that don't understand in Colorado, because then it takes some of the sideboards and the restrictions off for us to get more wolves. And right now, we would prefer not to have more wolves. Oregon has said no. British Columbia said no. Washington said no. No other states are willing to give us any wolves. But if they're delisted, Katie bar the door, because then we think that the governor would likely be willing to turn around and get something from other states, because the Nesvik letter and the response had to deal with the federal protections or endangered or threatened species and what Colorado has to engage in. And so if they are delisted, it opens up the door for introductions, probably more of a chance for introductions than if they remain listed in the state.
Because right now they have to go through more checks and balances. That's why.
Yeah, and the time frame. I mean, they don't want to put wolves on the ground too late in the February and March, because they would have already bred, and then they're trying to find a place to den and set up their own territories for having a litter and so forth. So optimally, it would be in December and January. So they've missed that window. But then the Nesvik letter and the response from CPW, and then I have to think that Davis leaving and a new director coming in played a significant role in this question mark of introduction, because Davis was here for 2 years, and you get somebody in that's from the military that doesn't understand the full process. She's taken guidance from the executive management team within CPW, but they're also trying to do it from a science perspective, not just because the governor wants it perspective.
Right. If they were delisted, would it open up the future potential for state management? And if so, is there anything in the works as far as like what that would look like?
In this current administration, that is like a taboo word, and I'm afraid if anybody talked about that, they might be shunned and tarred and feathered and thrown out with the wolves themselves. That is not part of it was not part of the original conversation. It's not likely to be part of a conversation right now. There was thresholds that needed to be made on the wolf introduction of 30 to 50 wolves over a 3-year period to eventually get to a moderate population of around 150, and then get to 250 with X amount of breeding packs spread across the state. And then management could possibly be considered. But with what we have right now, there's no way, shape, or form they're going to be a considerable opportunity to try to manage what we have. I think they're trying to salvage what we have and still adhere to the will of the people.
I mean, all I read about is the the exorbitant amount of money that Colorado is putting into. I see these breakdowns of like, this is the dollar amount per wolf.
Yeah.
Right. Which is this crazy amount. And, I read down through the comments and I see people saying this is insane, which I agree. But I was curious as to, do you think that the public perception has swayed or shifted some since this? Because to me, it looks like a pretty big failure in regards to, like getting them introduced and following the plan and making sure that they, survive and they go forward and they become part of the system. To me, it looks like a failure. Do you think that the public perception is like, if they, hindsight being 2020, if they look back, they thought, man, we just wish we wouldn't have voted for this? To me, it looks like just a thorn in everybody's side right now in Colorado.
I think you're right. I think a lot of the people, I think some of these, the consternation of some of these people probably helped us on 127, where they started to see, because the wolves were in the news every day then. I mean, 18 months ago, 20 months ago, 24 months ago. And we were fighting 127, and they started to look and go, I just voted on this, and should I vote on this? And maybe I shouldn't. And then they saw all the positive and negative propaganda going around mountain lions that didn't happen really on the wolf issue. And they started to question, if I'm an Uber driver in Denver, should I be voting on something like this? And then, and I say that tongue in cheek, but by the amount of votes that we switched and flipped from 2020 on 114 to 2024 on 127, I mean, counties and cities that voted for wolves, even if we didn't win in 24, we flipped by 20 or 30 percentage points. I mean, that's monumental in itself, where people turn around and went, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't doing this. I think if we reheld the election today, just like it was exactly in 2020, I think it would fail. This is me talking. It's probably hyperbole, but I think it would fail by at least 3 to 10 percentage points, because people have become more educated about wildlife management. And at the same time, they've become educated more about wildlife management and the intricacies of it and the complexities of it. They've also learned that maybe what we have is a pretty good system with the current parks and wildlife experts that are supposed to be managing our stuff. Because even in today's environment, if you poll the general public in the state of Colorado and you say, who's the expert? They always go back to the agency. They might not know the name of the agency. It might be Parks and Rec or whatever it is. But they want the uniformed biologist and scientist to be managing Colorado's wildlife and making the decisions. And that's somewhere in the neighborhood of still around 80+%. Now, as soon as you get into other segments of that, trophy hunting, sport hunting, trapping, or whatever, that acceptance starts to drop, but it's still positive because they still want the experts to make those decisions. And I think if we had to turn around and vote for wolves again, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about these things. And I think that if the vote would have went differently on wolves in 2020, I don't think we would have had a mountain lion ballot initiative or a fur ban initiative in 2024 either, because the landscape would not have been as palatable for them to think that they could just run away and do whatever the hell they want to.
Right. This insect, or not insecticide, this rodent,
it's bugging the hell out of Trail. He's like, it's like, I'm not eating McDonald's again.
I just can't get over it. But so the rodenticide, and then you talked about fur-bearing animals. Is that where is that right now in the process? Is it is it a bill that's trying to be passed? Is it a petition, a collection of signatures to then become a bill that would be voted on in November?
No, so the rodenticide is Senate Bill 62. Okay. And that goes in front of the the Senate Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee on February 12th at 1:30. Okay. And for anybody that's listening to this, they're more than welcome to chime in virtually or written testimony or whatever. Public comment would be valuable, and we will be there to testify in person. I would think every woman in the state of Colorado would not be pumped on that one. Well, I won't mention a name, but I got a game warden friend of mine who's a great big burly powerlifting, arm wrestling, bear fighting guy. You show him a mouse, he will shoot you in the face. I mean, I wanted to put a mouse toy with a fishing line in his truck, and when he opened the door, it was going to jump out. And his buddy, the other game warden, he's like, he will kill you. I'm not going to give you the keys to his truck. He will kill you. And so I think you're right, Trail. I think that 97% of all people would look at this and say, what?
What?
And 2% would say, I don't care. And then there's a 1% out there that are like, we need to stop all killing of every single thing, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. What about the fur one? Ban on
the fur one is the one that we're really trying to rally the troops on, and it is a fur ban to go in front of the Parks and Wildlife Commission on March 4th and 5th. The agenda's not been set, but that's the days of the meeting. And that is an attempt to prohibit the sale of fur-bearing animal parts and pieces throughout the state. And it doesn't matter whether it's a roadkill or I trap a skunk out of somebody's crawl space and I want to salvage it. It doesn't matter whether you have a license and a fur-bearer permit. It doesn't matter whether it's the accoutrements and accessories like a skull or teeth or claws off of that legally harvested animal. It doesn't matter how you get it. You won't be able to turn around and sell, trade, or barter it in any way, shape, or form. And for some people that think that that might be a travesty that we do that and it's not an adherence to the North American model, the North American model specifically states that fur harvesting is a legitimate reason. And it also is not incorporated into the market hunting side of things from the 1880s into the early 1900s, which you'll hear through testimony. Our enemies will continually say this is a complete reversal of the North American model. This goes against the standards of the North American model. I had a beer with Shane Mahoney in Reno, and Shane Mahoney specifically told me, and our mission is to enhance, promote, and defend the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. Shane said what we're doing to defend and enhance that goes along with every single thing that the enemy is trying to impose that we're trying to defeat. And it just keeps resurfacing and reoccurring. And they believe that if they say it enough, if they just keep spewing their interpretations and their lies and their BS, when you're talking to the guy that helped write the damn thing, and whether we can get Shane to comment or provide input on this, we've got others that'll be willing to do that in the substitution. But this will undermine that will of the people in the city and county of Denver, which is the largest county and city in the state of Colorado. And that shouldn't be discounted or discredited, because if you can pass something in Denver, the rest of the state kind of follows. I mean, as far as total numbers. But if it fails in Denver by the 17 percentage points, I mean, that's such a remarkable turn of events that the commission should take that into consideration and not just think about what the first gentleman and the governor want to happen, because this is a standard that is trying to be reversed from their side just to get away from the will of the people. And so this, in addition to, like what I said, they're attempting on top of the fur ban to create a coyote season, to take 7 species off of the classification. You won't be able to harvest any of those species. You won't be able to use electronic calls on the remaining species. You won't be able to trap with cage traps, which is only what we can use in the state of Colorado on public land. You'll not be able to night hunt. You'll not be able to do a variety of things when it comes to fur bearers. And additionally, they might be talking about further restrictions on season dates and applicability for being able to utilize 30-day exemption periods for protection of private property and human health and safety. Because there again, it goes back to the zero standard. They don't care. They don't want science. They don't want data. They don't want consumptive use. They don't want harvest. They want it prohibited. They want it all stopped. And they're going to do it however the hell they can turn around and try to get it.
So this is being heard at the commission level, you said, on March 4th and 5th?
March 4th and 5th in Westminster, Colorado. It's at the Doubletree Hotel in Westminster, Colorado. We asked for a larger venue. They granted that because they knew they couldn't sustain the crowd at their office in Denver. This is about 15 minutes away from there. It's a larger venue. We are anticipating a large crowd, probably from both sides, but we are doing everything that we could possibly do in the resources that we have to rally the troops, and there'll be a ton more information that comes out and surfaces once we have the specificity of the agenda, which doesn't have to be done until about the 3rd week of February. But we're just telling people to mark their calendars, 4th and 5th, and plan on one day once we know what day it'll be. And if they can give us both days, because it's going to be a packed agenda, if they can give us both days, that'd be fantastic. Because if they think that they can get away with, I keep saying, circumventing the will of the people and undermining the agency and the science side of these working groups and these focus groups and these stakeholder groups and all the stuff that's been conducted, why do we do any of this? Why don't we just turn around and say, here, Mr. Animal Activist, and here, Mrs. Animal Activist, just go ahead and do whatever the hell you see fit, and we just quit? Because that's what they want. And I'm looking at some of this stuff after what we did on 127 and these other issues. If we're not going to show up in force, If we're not going to turn around and try to stop them after we've already proven it, why are you going to gripe when it's already taken away and when it's done? And if you think that you're not the low-hanging fruit, wait till they start just taking this other stuff off the plate and off the table, and then you become the low-hanging fruit because there's nobody else left.
Yeah. And we don't want to get to a situation like we did with the wolf thing, where we look back at it and go, man, that was a big deal. And if we'd have just showed up then, we wouldn't be here. So these types of issues, as they pop up, they become increasingly more important because we don't want them to snowball. We don't want the next thing to be just like a complete ban on hunting, like you see it.
I'll make a comment real quick. And, there was a bill introduced last year that the commission then turned around and ran through the management plan of this to create a bison management plan for bison that were coming over from Utah that then could be managed without being shot willy-nilly by landowners or anybody else. There was no plan, so they were an unregulated species. There was no law against shooting them, but some individuals wanted to impose some sort of conservation restrictions on them, so they did. No problems. But there was a statement made during those conversations that if there's any sort of management plan that needs to be imposed on bison, we need to make sure that those opportunities do not take place when a cow has a standing calf with it. Now, these are damage type hunts that we're talking about, and I'm not advocating for cow and calf type things, but I could tell you that question then surfaced and started circulating through the extremist organizations. Maybe we ought to look at archery season. Maybe we ought to start talking about cows and fawns and does and calves during archery season. Maybe that's something we can turn around and get these people to start. Why are we killing bighorn sheep? That's our state animal. Maybe we ought to start really looking into these practices of these individual organizations that the commission works for. They find the chink in the armor and they find something that somebody's going to talk about. And then they're like, well, let's just turn around and go with it. And while it might not seem like a possibility to some, anybody that's sitting into these arenas and fighting at these levels realizes that when somebody says something at any level, somebody else is willing to turn around and try to capitalize it and manipulate it. And if they say it enough, people start to believe it.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're still thinking about
crazy.
mouse turds.
No, I'm not. I moved past it. I just had to say my bit on it, but I can't wait to go home and just, lambaste everybody that I know in my household and say, you guys will never believe what I heard today.
Yeah. I mean, let me ask you guys, have you ever had a mouse issue in your warehouse?
Yeah, I've had mice in my house. I have so I have 2 empty lots, one behind me, which they just built a house, and then one to the side of me. And anytime they do any kind of ground manipulation on those 2 lots, we'll get mice. We get them every winter, so I'll have like 2 or 3 every winter. Yeah. And my wife and kids lose their mind. You brought up the big burly guy. Like I've got a 20-year-old that's 6'4", 200 pounds, and like if he saw a mouse, he's gonna lose his shit. So I totally get that. But yeah. I mean,
I used to set up a legit trap line in this backcountry cabin I had to stay at when I did fisheries work in Montana, and I would write down in the little booklet, which you go and sign in and do all the research stuff on. I was like, here's the best places to put your traps. Here's the best bait to use. I had it documented scientifically because we had to sleep in there, and it was so gross. And they had the same thing, the hantavirus warning every time you went in there. You're staying here at your own risk. And I'm like, well, I'm going to solve this problem. There's traps in here, and I'm going to utilize them.
About 8 years ago in Colorado, I had a mouse get into my truck. My Tundra that I had, Trail and Brady, I had a mouse get in there. And it was the smartest, hardest, most ninja style mouse I've ever been around. I used every trap, I tried everything, and I could not catch him. And he followed me around everywhere. I mean, he came to Vegas with me, was still in my truck, couldn't get him. He was living somewhere in the truck, came to Utah, he was still in there. I finally got him caught in Nevada, like after a month of trying to catch him. And he was just destroying my truck. Destroying it.
They would probably turn that around and say you're transporting animals across state lines, and so they would probably sit you with a higher fine.
Couldn't get him out. That mouse will live rent-free in my head for the rest of my life because I just could not figure out how to get him caught and taken care of.
Well, and I tell you what, for people that don't know, the theory is that if you started out with a male and a female mouse on January 1st, and no mouse died for the entire year for their regurgitation of their species, the propagation, you would end up somewhere between 12 and 15,000 mice out of the original 2. Now, we know that's not the case, but the point is they come to sexual maturity in 21 days, and they breed, and then they turn around and have a litter. And you can see how after about 3 months, you start to go from 2 to 2,750 or whatever the hell it is. Rats are the same way, but the problem with rats are they will turn around and eat other species to make sure that they propagate themselves, where mice aren't never as prevalent to do that. So when we have an infestation, and it's cyclical, it goes on. And we're getting off a mouse topic here because we started talking about mice, but you should start doing mouse hunts or something. I don't know, but the cyclical side is we see so much growth in mouse populations when you have high levels of moisture, high moisture years, and you got more foliage, and then they have bigger litters and they breed more frequently. And I mean, just at our barn here where I'm sitting, my wife typically on a good wet year with traps, no bait that we can account for, but even though we bait, but with traps, so where they don't go eat the wires out or whatever in the process. She'll do between 5 and 1,500 mice on a 30 by 60 barn. Now this is in a field, and we got open space around us, but that's on a regular year. You turn around and get a good moisture year, and it's almost you drive through the driveway coming from the highway down there. It's a quarter mile, and you can see the ground crawl. And for people to turn around and try to impose these sort of regulations, these laws, they don't understand the magnificent cycle of what the rodent populations do. And you can do that same thing when you get into, a variety of other species that become nuisance oriented.
Yeah.
But wolves are a prime example of that same comparison when they're not managed.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating for extirpation of wolves, but look at what wolves have done in locations where there's been no management to allow to grow to a specific population, and then they're running behind trying to turn around and manage to bring them back to some sort of level. One thing you need to look at, too, is this bill. This is the mentality of these people. The rodent bill has no prevention measures whatsoever. It's not even trying to solve the problem before it happens. It's just like let it go willy-nilly. That's the problem that we did on wolf issues in the state of Colorado. The plan was not fully in place. The rodent deal is a prime example. And that's what we're hoping to be able to try to, educate the legislators about, because they've been funding the wolf introduction.
Yeah.
If you don't have the range riders in place, if you don't have a compensation plan in place, you don't have a lethal removal plan in place, you don't have the flattery in place, you don't have all the tools and the mechanisms and everything in the toolbox in place, you're going to end up with significant problems that you turn around and backtrack on. That's with 25 or 30 wolves. Think if you had 400 of the damn things you needed to have this stuff in place. Rodents are similar, but on a very, very smaller scale that is much more broadly spread.
Yeah, the level of disconnect is just unfathomable. I mean, it's I can't get there at all. I mean,
no.
We talked about this IP28 in Oregon, and I read through it yesterday, and I was just thinking, like, what did these people, the proponents of this, like, what did they think will happen? It's so. It's just like I'm living in bizarro world. I can't wrap my head around it.
Soon enough, Trail, you won't be able to slap a mosquito. You won't be able to drive your car because you'll hit bugs. Like,
hey, have you seen the Mormon cricket infestations in places?
Oh man, haven't I?
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, I can see just cricket crossings and no traffic on the highways until the crickets all passed, and because you're detrimental to the ecosystem and biodiversity and
yeah. When I worked for the Forest Service in southern Utah, you would get those big hatches of them. And I worked on an ATV trail crew, and there were times where those trails would get literally slick. You'd be coming around a corner and you'd have to really watch it because it was just completely paved with dead Mormon crickets. There was just thousands. I mean, literally, you talk about the ground crawling, like that was. That was we did it. Of
course, we're pest control applicators, but we did a deal in a town next to me, about 40 miles away. I won't name the town because it's known for these type of things. But we did we were doing pest control in one building, but some of the roaches were coming from a Chinese restaurant, and so we went to the Chinese owner and said, look, we can't. They're in the same building. we can't solve the problem here because you're the harboring spot and this is the reproduction facility. And he was like, oh no, I don't have any roaches. I have no bugs, and you don't have to worry about me. And it's like, that's not, we know they're coming from your place. Well, the city was going through and doing some sort of a lining process in the sewer system. They didn't have to dig anything up. They just put other pipes in there. But when they did that, for about a 6-block radius, the roaches came out of the sewage line. And I mean, and the Chinese guy was one of the first to call. You got to come now. I have roaches everywhere. It's like, well, he had them to start with. It's just that they were close proximity to his deal. And when they started relining those pipes, and it was the god-awfulest, nastiest, flipping, stinking, infested thing that you could possibly see. And people are like always asking us, you want to meet for lunch somewhere? And they'd ask someplace. I'm like, okay, we're not going there. We're not going here. We're not going there or here or there. Just meet in a park and bring a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It might be better. So
yeah, take home message is you just need common sense. You need a plan and you need management. And it really does boil down to that. Give us one more time. So March 4th and 5th.
March 4th and 5th, Westminster, Doubletree Hotel. We will have the agenda and all of the information probably by the 17th. We don't want to put misinformation out or give people something as half-assed. But by February 17th, we will have all that information on the website, and that's at savethehuntcolorado.com. The other thing they can do if they're so inclined, they can see my dumb Neanderthal face on Facebook or Instagram, as you guys are well aware of. And then our podcast that we're doing is Through the Gates podcast that we've gotten significant traction on because we're talking about wildlife politics for the most part, which maybe you guys could learn something from that because, that seems to be the topic of the day anymore. Everybody's worried about what's going to be taken away and what they have to fight for. But Through the Gates podcast, Instagram is CRWM, Facebook is Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management. We're putting stuff out every day about something pertaining to these. Yeah. And once we start the full-blown onslaught of outreach from the organizations, people will probably get sick and tired because we really want a magnificent crowd at those meetings. And then there's the other meetings, like I say, in May 6th and 7th in Grand Junction. But if we don't do a good showing in March, it's all bets off. There's no sense in us fighting it in May.
Do you know, Dan, will those meetings be broadcast? Will they be live streamed? And can people attend online? And can they also comment online?
They can sign up for virtual testimony online, and that would be through the CPW Commission website that will all be on our website. But they'll have to sign up, I believe, 7 days in advance for the virtual testimony. They can also write a letter if they want. Or email the commission itself, which will all be on our website. Okay. But there again, you guys know as well as I do, public attendance in these sort of situations is way more valuable to show people's efforts that they took time off of work, they drove across the state, they came there, and they were supporting the efforts of the scientists and the consumers and the sportsmen and women to let these commissioners know. This you might think this is a good thing, but if the agency is not willing to support it and you're going in the value of the will of the people, this is something that should not be considered.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. So show up and then, write and attend virtually. If you can't show up. I would think even if we could show a massive number of people online, watching and, participating is going to be a good show if you can't make it. But certainly I agree. If you can make it, make it.
Yeah. One thing I would say real quick too, is if this is the same mentality that we had on Proposition 127, sportsmen and women that have interest in the state of Colorado, skin in the game, that buy licenses in the state, that recreate in the state, they come ski and then they come hunt, or they got property in the state, or they got relatives that this is a sportsman issue. It's not centric to the state boundaries. And we need to get that through our thick heads on the sportsman side of things. If you live in Arkansas and you like to hunt antelope or elk in Colorado, hey, this is your fight. If you aspire to hunt, or maybe you're applying for licenses, this is your fight. And this is the thing that I think we need to convince every state to get engaged in everybody else's business, especially when we have that crossover of I want to hunt Nevada, or I have hunted Nevada, or I know people that hunt Nevada. And same thing for every other state. We have to turn around and draw a line in the sand because we're all under attack and under the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's well said.
Well, we appreciate your time, Dan. Any other questions from Brady or Lorenzo before we cut Dan loose for the afternoon?
No, I just hope everyone just jumps on board and does whatever they can to make everyone aware of all this stuff again, like we did a couple years ago with Prop 127. Just talk to everyone you know about it, make everyone aware, and jump on the meetings and voice your opinion when you can.
Yeah,
very important.
Appreciate your support from all of you.
Same, Dan. Thanks for fighting the good fight. I really appreciate all the work that you do. I mean, we said the same thing to Charles when we talked to him. I mean, it's good to know that we've got good people that are passionate, that live and breathe it, and are invested in it completely to their core. And I'm an individual. I don't know that I've got the chutzpah that Dan Gates does, but so I'm glad that you do.
Well, I was always told that I have a weak mind, strong back, broad shoulders, and a big mouth. So I better put him to use. So
I like that.
And we are going to be in Vegas again in May. So maybe there's a time for a beer or some conversation. So
yes, as always, you're always welcome. Love to see you again.
Appreciate it.
Right. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys.